start with Arizona. Do we just watch them become one of the top teams in all of football?
Absolutely. I thought Arizona showed a tremendous amount of heart. Kyler Murray, man, like if there was questions about his leadership or him being quiet, I mean, I think he totally silenced a lot of the critics. He went toe-to-toe with Russell Wilson. I thought he was tremendous yesterday.
It just felt like he was using Russ's game to beat Russ in prime time. The best thing that happened was this game got flexed into prime time. And have you seen the picture yet, Rodney, of Kyler when he's in high school wearing a Russell Wilson jersey, watching Sunday Night Football, watching Russ play, and now he ultimately gets on the same field with them and outshines one of the great superstars in all of the NFL?
I didn't see it. I mean, you got to show it to me. How can you bring it up and not have a picture of it? Do you have a picture of it?
I do. I'll text it to you during the first commercial.
Oh, you'll text it to me. I think everybody else wants to see it.
And now they've brought it back into the fold. It feels like both those guys are unsackable. How are they always able to, even when the pass rush makes it there, figure out a way to escape and go make a little bit of magic?
Man, that's what they do, and that's the thing that we talked about in the pregame show. Not only have one spy for Kyler, but maybe have two spies, and then just making sure when you rush him, you don't get behind him. You have to come up and almost get even with him, keep him in this little box area where he can't do his thing. But the thing that really I just loved about Kyler is when he went off on the sideline. He was yelling and screaming at somebody, and that's the fire, that's the energy that you have to have, and that's the energy and fire that they were waiting for this kid. I'll tell you this, one day this kid is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year. I just like him, man. I just think he's a really good football player.
I remember the exact moment that you're talking about, Rodney, and it's funny because Liam McHugh asked Hopkins on the field before the game, what's something about Kyler Murray that regular football fans don't know or don't get to see from him? And his answer was his command, the command of Kyler Murray. And it was a missed block that you were talking about. There was like a tight end, maybe two tight ends out there that were blocking for a wide receiver screen. They both missed the block, and immediately Kyler dug into him. It feels like he has all those leadership qualities that maybe a guy like Russell Wilson would have too.
And it shows you, too, that they actually respect the guy, because if you get a young quarterback yelling and screaming at guys, a lot of times guys would jump back or say something really smart to him, but that didn't happen. You saw Patrick Peterson come over and try to calm him down, but that's the type of fire that you need if you're trying to win a Super Bowl. But one thing I want to mention to you, man, is we can't go past that hustle play by DK Metcalf. And do you remember earlier in the year when he was running, he had the ball, and he was going into the end zone, and DB came and knocked it loose? You remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he came back last night and just showed everybody in the country like what hustling and hard work can do. I thought that was one of the greatest plays I've ever seen.
Rodney, you've never been caught quite like that in your career before, have you? When you got the pick six running down the sideline? Never happened to you.
I wasn't the fastest guy, but I tell you, I was probably faster than Buda Baker, and I wouldn't have gotten caught by him.
Does DK look like he's just – because whenever you watch NFL games, there's fast and then there's NFL fast, and everybody knew that he was NFL big. I mean, you see the picture of him with his shirt off. He looks like Megatron times something else. But the speed element of his game seems like something that when he gets on the NFL field, he makes guys that typically are outrageously athletic just look like they're not quite compared to him.
You know, I saw him in the pregame, and I saw him in this cut-off short-sleeve shirt, and I saw him with some real, short shorts. And I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, could that have actually, his body and the way he's built, did that work against him? Because the Patriots had an opportunity to go grab him. And a lot of times when you look at a guy like that, you say, you know what, he can't play football. You remember David Boston? David Boston was a wide receiver back in the day. He was 6'1", 240 pounds, and a lot of people didn't think that he could move and he couldn't play because he was so big. And I think it actually hurt DK Metcalf that he's so big and so physically imposing.
When you watch Kyler Murray play, because going into the game, I'm thinking you probably want to try to, force him to run around, force him to try to make too many plays with his legs, make some extra magic happen. But then when you watch him in that game, he is a dominant pocket passer. I mean, from the first drive or two of the game, he delivered that perfect deep ball over the shoulder. Hopkins perfectly placed. And then he came back throughout the course of the game, and Hopkins about 10 catches, something like that. Those two, for not being able to play together for long, have a chemistry that looks like they've played together for their entire careers.
Brother, I'll tell you this, man. Just watching them, they're going to be together for a very long time. And just to see the heart. You know, I mean, to be able to be backed up in a situation like that and continually just always showing heart, that competitive spirit, Kyler Murray won me over. I watch him on tape, and I'm, like, amazed at some of the things that he could do. But last night truly won me over when it comes to Kyler Murray. I think he's a fantastic talent.
And over on the other side, it sometimes gets lost a little bit when you end up losing the game. You mentioned the DK Metcalf. That one gets lost a little bit when you end up losing the game. Tyler Lockett coming on in this game. I mean, this is as close to, from a wide receiver standpoint, to a perfect game as somebody can play, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you look what they have. I mean, they have three really, really good wide receivers. And David Moore, he's been tremendous. He's actually been, each year it seems like he starts to get better. What I like about Tyler Lockett is he's a small guy and he can go deep, but he's not afraid to come across the middle. And a lot of run after the catch it, make people miss, use that speed. But the thing that really scares me about Seattle is still that defense. Even when Jamal Adams comes back, I just think they don't have great pass rushers. You start to look at some of the dominant teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, like the Baltimore Ravens, even the Kansas City Chiefs. They have guys that can get to the quarterback. You look at Seattle, their best pass rusher is a safety. And he's going to come back this week. And it's just, in order to go far in the playoffs, you got to be able to have consistent pass rush, and they just don't have that.
Let's get it over to the Cleveland Browns, because Baker Mayfield had essentially been written off. You get blown out by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and everybody goes, oh, Baker Mayfield, it's the same trajectory of him now regressing ever since his rookie season. He's getting worse. He may not be the future of the Cleveland Browns. I'm going, relax. I mean, the next game on the schedule is the Cincinnati Bengals. You can go out there, it's going to be a little bit different. Now, it took him all the way until the final drive of that game to go do it. What did Baker Mayfield prove to you, though, this week?
Well, I've always liked Baker, and I've always thought that he was a mentally tough guy. And obviously there's challenges when you're coming in. You're dealing with guys like Odell Beckham trying to get him the ball and all these different coaching changes and things like that. But for him to throw 5 touchdown passes, it shows you that he can play. We all know that he can play. The question is, can he do it on a consistent basis? The question is, can he do it without the run game against some of the better teams? We saw him against Pittsburgh. We saw him against Baltimore, and he could not get it done. But against your lowly Bengals, he was able to get it done. So I still think there are lingering questions as it relates to Baker Mayfield. But I tell you this, not having Odell Beckham, and I know that's a devastating injury, and my heart goes out for Odell because I've been there. But I look at Baker and I say, and I'm going to ask you this. You think Baker is almost, in a sense, I wouldn't say relieved, but do you think this might work out even better for Baker, knowing that he doesn't have to force the ball to Odell Beckham? Is that a stupid question?
Well, we had the same conversation going back to last week with the Green Bay Packers, right? With Devontae Adams, who had been out of the building, and Aaron Rodgers was playing MVP form. And so those two things don't seem to add up. But it does seem like it takes pressure off of a quarterback when he doesn't have to drop back and get a certain guy 10, 12 targets every game. You know, it just takes pressure off him because it really gives him the optionality of where he wants to go with the football instead of having to go to the sideline every time and have a conversation about why the superstar is not getting all the looks.
And it also gives your quarterback an opportunity to develop chemistry with the younger wide receivers, Rashad Higgins, the tight end, Harrison Bryant, Donovan Peoples-Jones, just to continue to get David Njoku involved. And that's, you know, it's not going to be one guy just leading them. They need to do it by committee. They have a lot of good young players, and I just think the pressure off of Baker is going to allow him to breathe. I mean, you're never a better team without a guy like Odell Beckham, but at the same sense, if your quarterback can have a sense of calm and he doesn't feel like that he has to force the ball to someone, who knows? I mean, he might become a better player.
And Odell Beckham Jr., he's not as young as he once was anymore. So you have to start to wonder about what his legacy is going to become. Now, two different teams bouncing around a little bit, a whole bunch of injuries. What does this mean for OBJ, where he may go from here? Should he be looking to get off the Cleveland Browns? Where might be a good fit for him? Or do you think it will work in Cleveland if he just lets this thing breathe a little bit?
I said this a week ago. I said Baker Mayfield will never be happy in Cleveland as long as Baker Mayfield is the quarterback. Because Baker Mayfield, he's not that guy. He's not a guy that's going to drop back 40 times consistently and be able to throw for over 300 yards. He needs to be in a system where he has a Kyler Murray, a Russell Wilson, a quarterback like that where he can really get involved and he knows that they're going to be able to get him the ball. In Cleveland, he's not going to be happy. And I said that earlier this year. I said they need to trade him to the Patriots or someone else that needs a wide receiver because he's never going to be happy in Cleveland.
And Rodney, it does seem like we're losing a little bit of appreciation just as a football community for the fact that the Cleveland Browns are 5-2. You know, like the Browns are 5-2, and we're writing them off like there's some team over hanging out on the side. If they were 5-2 last year with Freddie Kitchens, everybody would have been talking about the Cleveland Browns are going to the Super Bowl. But instead, now that you get, it's a first-year head coach. Stefanski comes over, and immediately this is a winning program. Are they as good as the Pittsburgh Steelers? No, they're not as good as the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tomlin's been there forever. That's a built, ready-to-win right now football team. The Cleveland Browns, under a brand-new head coach, are already winning. Are we overreacting to some of the losses or setbacks that they've had to get to where they currently sit at 5 wins?
No, actually, I think we've done a pretty good job because we've looked at the talent, we've been patient with them, and we always say, hey, with this level of talent, with all the guys that they have, they should be able to compete with a bunch of teams. So if anything, they've been a disappointment, not us as fans, because we've always appreciated the excellent football players they have in the locker room. It's just our expectations always, they've gone up. And Cleveland, unfortunately, they haven't been able to meet our expectations, just like I talked about. When you lose to Pittsburgh, when you lose to Baltimore, good teams, no one's going to take you serious. Yeah, you can go out and beat the Cincinnati Bengals, but can you beat good teams in your division? And they obviously can't right now.
I got to sneak one in on Cincinnati before we move on. Is that the best one-win team in football? I mean, it seems like every single game they figure out a way to be there. They look like they're going to win it. You get confidence that Joe Burrow is LSU Joe Burrow and he's going to find a way down the stretch. And even in this game against the Browns, he did find a way to win it. That was a hell of a drive right there at the end of the game. Great fourth down call to punch it into the end zone, and then it's just two wild Baker Mayfield throws back the other way. Is this one of the better one-win teams in football, or do you think that they maybe need to be starting to think about who might be the head coach of the future in Cincinnati?
No. I think they're doing a great job in Cincinnati, and you expect this. You expect some growing pains, and especially we talked about last week, we talked about the lack of an offensive line, and think, who knows during this whole trading period, will they go and try to trade for an offensive lineman? I know in the offseason that they're going to spend a ton of money on the offensive line because if you don't want that young guy getting beat up, you better protect him. But no, I feel good about Cincinnati and what they're doing. If anything, I feel better about Cincinnati almost in a sense more so than Cleveland because I think Joe Burrow is going to be a lot better quarterback than Baker Mayfield.
That I agree with you on. Let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a week ago, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers that demolished the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers are now starting to get hot. Steelers beat the Titans. They're unbeaten so far this season. And when you go and you watch them play, Rodney, three great wide receivers this team has, and it's honestly hard to decide who the number one is right now.
It doesn't matter. That's the great part about this team. It doesn't even matter who's the number one. And Ben, he goes out and they're doing a good job of spreading the ball around where you can't key on one guy. He's getting the ball out of his hands quickly, and they're using the short intermediate passing, quick passing game to set up the shots down the field. James Conner, he's been terrific running the football. Don't look at his numbers. Look at his body of work and how physical he's running the ball. But I'm going to tell you this. When I look at that tape, every time I turn on the tape, I see T.J. Watt. And to me, T.J. Watt, I love Aaron Donald, but I look at T.J. Watt, and I do believe that he should be leading the Defensive Player of the Year award right now because he's playing a run, he's sacking the quarterback, he's putting pressure, he's making plays from the backside. I mean, T.J. Watt has been tremendous.
If you're a GM and you could draft any of the edge defenders, any defender at all in football right now, how long would it take you to pick TJ Watt? Where does he rank among the best in the league?
Probably right now, the way he's playing as a complete defender, my first pick would always be Aaron Donald. My second pick would be probably Nick Bosa. My third pick right now would be TJ Watt.
Wow. Okay, so that Steelers defense in general, though.
Let me ask you, Jack,
Yeah.
let me ask you, who would your guys be?
Okay. I very quickly am going to lock in on Donald as well. TJ Watt probably number 2 for me right now. I probably go TJ Watt number 2 and then Khalil Mack number 3. Although those are 2A, 2B kind of a situation. That's depending on the day you make your pick right there. What happened to your guy Derrick Henry this week, by the way, Rodney?
Pittsburgh did a great job, man. And I'll tell you, just watching the tape, going back and watching the tape again this morning, what Pittsburgh is doing, they're doing a lot of linebacker blitzes, run blitzes. Vince Williams up there, you see how well he played. And I wanted to mention his name because he's been absolutely outstanding. You see all these guys, Minka Fitzpatrick, pick 6 last week, and all these guys, TJ Watt, getting all the props, but Vince Williams has been absolutely a stud in the middle of that defense. You see his numbers, 9 tackles, a sack, a quarterback hit, and just his physical presence on that run game. And that's what happened. Derrick Henry met Vince Williams.
That's what happened. A week ago, I took Kamara as the top running back in football. You took Derrick Henry as the top running back in football. 2 different styles there. Kamara, another explosion he had this week. He is a smooth-looking guy, one of the most patient runners that I've seen in a long time. And he also never really seems like he takes big hits. He has a way of avoiding those big shots, which is rare for a top running back. What stands out most when you watched him play this weekend?
Well, it's just the versatility in the way they're using him. I love the way they're using him because they're not overusing him. They're bringing in Latavius Murray, giving him an opportunity, and they're using Alvin Kamara as a wide receiver. So now he doesn't just have to take the pounding of being a running back, but he can also use his other skill set as a wide receiver. And he's been tremendous. I mean, since they've been doing that with the offense, he looks fresh, he looks confident. I mean, you see the rush yards. I mean, he's averaging almost 5 yards a attempt, and he's got 7 touchdowns. I mean, this is another guy that could be in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. I wouldn't say MVP, but Offensive Player of the Year.
When you watch the Saints offense play, especially right now, no Emmanuel Sanders, no Michael Thomas, there's not a weapon that looks overly confident, Cooks maybe, but when you watch Breeze, there's only one option that he's looking at first every time, and it's Kamara. And they want to check it down to him in the screen game. They want to put him in the slot, bring him across the formation, just dump it to him. Best case scenario on any down for this offense is getting the ball to Kamara in space. Why is it that none of these defensive coordinators do like a box and one, for basketball, for instance, like a box and chaser, a running back spy, something to where every single play he is the singular focus of the defense to take him away and force Drew Brees to have to push the ball down the field a little bit?
Well, I asked that for the last 3 or 4 years with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, 100-plus catches every year. Why don't you double team him, especially on a third down, especially in a red zone, and no defense coordinator double teams him? And that's a question that I'm like, why don't they double team him? And I just cannot figure it out. How can you not worry about a guy that's caught 100-plus passes, receptions in X amount of years, and Alvin Kamara? You don't even have Michael Thomas to deal with. Alvin Kamara, he's the guy. How could you not have 1 or 2 guys and jamming him and beating him up at the line of scrimmage? I don't get it, man. I just think that a lot of times these defensive coordinators, they look at their cards just like an offensive coordinator, and regardless of the down or distance, they just say, okay, I'm just going to play this, and that's what they do.
And he continues to be the leading receiver on the Saints offense by a substantial margin, even though you look at his average depth of target, and it's about a half a yard down the field. That's all they really do is just check him the ball. and then he always finds a way. The really strange thing about watching him play is that it doesn't look like he's running overly hard or like he's, using a whole bunch of energy, but he's always just moving faster than all of the defenders. It's like such a patient, smooth looking, like when you watch him as a defender, why is it that nobody can tackle this guy in the open field? What does he do that's different than the vast majority of NFL running backs?
Well, I think a lot of times, too, when I'm watching, a lot of defenders, they try to come up and get the big hit on him. And that's one thing that these smooth guys, they're not going to allow you to do. He's very patient. He's smooth. He has great instincts. He has a great feel for where the defense is coming. And if he sees you're about to hit him, he's going to get down or he's going to get out of bounds. I mean, that's smart running. You don't need him taking big shots. And Alvin Kamara, he's been fantastic for this team. Hopefully, he can stay healthy when Michael Thomas comes back. I like this kid. I forget the kid's name. I'm sorry. Wide receiver, Marquez Callaway. That's who it is, Marquez Callaway. Mm-hmm. I like him. And they got some guys. Emmanuel Sanders will continue to play better. Jared Cook, he'll continue to step up. I think Jared Cook is a huge weapon that I still don't believe they use enough. Jared Cook is 6'7". How could you not use him? I know he caught a touchdown, but yeah, he's 6'7". Why not use him more?
I'm with you. Traquan Smith, another player that's stepping up pretty big for them as well. Let's stay on the topic of people who just are not taking big hits. Your former quarterback, Tom Brady, has always notoriously gotten the football out well before anybody even gets in the radius of an opportunity to have a shot at him. Do you think Tom is starting to enter the MVP race after the way that he played this weekend?
The MVP race. I know Tom's not worried about that, but Tom's a very competitive guy, and he hears all the whispers and he hears people talking about him and saying that he's not the same player. I think for Tom, that's definitely not important. It's about wins, but I would say Tom is slowly but surely creeping back in. I mean, I would say, let me ask you, who do you think, Kyler Murray or Tom Brady, if you had to choose between those guys right now?
I'm going Tom Brady. Tom Brady played about as close to a perfect game as I've seen him play in a long time. And you think about this offense, it's only going to get better. I mean, you go through the weapons, Godwin, Evans, now AB enters the fold. Scotty Miller's the leading wide receiver. It always seems like Tom wants some receiver that nobody's ever heard of, that comes out of absolutely nowhere, that is just quick and that can win in one-on-one situations. But Scotty Miller can run, too. I mean, he's getting crazy separation multiple times, multiple different plays, one for a touchdown, one for a deep cross, the one for a huge gain, where he is stretching the field also for this team. And then you think about AB, Antonio Brown coming back, and who knows what version of Antonio Brown you get. But if it's anything close to the last time we saw him paired up with Tom Brady in New England, that duo was absolutely electric together, and it happened fast. You would think that they click right back into what that was.
And to me, that's the point. Will Antonio Brown come and will he behave? That's the question. Will he behave? Because when he's on the football field, one thing we know, he can play. And I know he's missed some time, but once he gets back up to speed on everything, remember, he's Hall of Fame caliber. So I don't when I look at their wide receivers, I look and say, well, if Antonio Brown, he gets a few games under his belt, he might be their best receiver. That's how deep they are. And the other thing, too, is you think about how many injuries their receiving core has had. This is great depth. This is an opportunity to provide depth, but you're providing a future Hall of Famer. You're providing an all-pro as your depth. So I like what I see, and then I don't believe Bruce Arians because I think it's a bunch of crap that he's saying that Tom Brady had nothing to do with this. Come on now, Tom Brady, come on. Tom had something to do with this.
I think Tom Brady's proving to be one of the great recruiters in NFL history right now. The way that he has put together this offense with exactly what he wants, and just to bring back Gronk, to now bring in Antonio Brown when he very well could have gone to Seattle, and also a Super Bowl ready team, go play with Russell Wilson. That's a win now program. Pete Carroll, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, other guys that would take attention off of him too. But I think he has a conversation with Tom Brady, And he's one of few, if not the only guys that Antonio Brown, in my opinion, will listen to because he trusts that Tom has the answers. And over the years, Tom Brady has proven to have the answers. And now he's proving that he has the answers even with the absence of Bill Belichick. And so I think it's the perfect place for him to go. And I think every time that any issue, be it big or small, would come up, Tom would have a conversation with them. He'd have them over to the house, whatever the case may be. And my guess is that it would be resolved. And I think that's why, if they prove that this relationship can work in New England, why you would run it back one more time in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and he's really the perfect teammate because he's unselfish. He doesn't make things about him. Like when you talk to Tom and you spend time with him, Tom doesn't see himself as the superstar, the GOAT, the greatest quarterback of all time. He still sees himself as the sixth-round draft choice. So there's a certain level of humility that's there. Remember, he wasn't a first-rounder. He wasn't a first pick like Kyler Murray. He wasn't a top 10 pick. So he had to fight and claw for everything that he has. So he understands the struggle, and he's a great teammate because he doesn't judge you. He's just going to embrace you, and he's going to try to do whatever he can to get you on the football field. And that's what he did with Antonio Brown. And you talk about trust. You talk about the faith that they have in one another. And I think Tom is the guy because Antonio Brown has so much respect for Tom. I think he purposely will try to be on his best behavior because he appreciates the opportunity that he's getting right now.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.